Okay, tell me about yourself.
Okay, my name is Kirill, and I'm in iOS development since 2016. I'm a fintech guy, a developer, and a developer um, who value product more than engineering. But engineering, of course, it's my main. But my main task is to solve business problem with knowledge of engineering domain, and do not limit them with some impossibilities from engineering team. And as I said, I worked a lot with mobile bank application, but they are complex. And one of my the most complex application was Messenger, real-time Messenger with server-driven UI. And since 2020, I developed application on Flutter from iOS and Android. And from 2021, I lead in the team of 6 developers, something
Awesome.
like that.
Okay, do you have your drawing application of choice?
Join application to
Drawing, like what are you going to be drawing, like diagrams and stuff? Would you use Xcode Draw or anything else?
Actually, I do not have any preferences, so I can use Miro board, or I don't know, like
it doesn't matter. I mean, it usually does matter, but in this setting, you can pick whatever you want.
Okay. So can you send me a link, please, which I can open? Or yeah, because sorry, I haven't prepared for that.
So there is this app called Xcode Draw, and this one, it's been, people seem to be using this a lot. I posted the link.
Okay. And share screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. Desktop 1, what is that? So, I need to restart Zoom because it asks for permission. Okay, so it will be fast.
Go for it. I can edit it out later.
So, okay. Okay, we are here. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so the question today, we're going to be designing an Uber app, but there is a twist. Imagine that we already have Uber app. So we build an app, you can request rides, everything is perfect. And now we need to make sure that this app is available worldwide, right? But there is a problem with this. Every country has its own payment system, right? So for example, just being able to pay with credit card, as most of people would do in the United States, would not work in other countries. When people may pay through their phone carriers, they might pay in cash and everything in between. So your job is just to imagine you have your own Uber app clone. Your job is just to make sure that it can support any payment system under the sun.
Okay.
That means that you don't really know how exactly this is all going to work, and you don't really want to hard code all of them. So imagine a new payment system comes in, and you want to make sure that you can add it without minimal changes to the client.
Okay, I got you. So it's included only fiat or cryptocurrencies also? Is it
anything?
included?
It could be anything. Even if you like, if somebody gonna offer you, I don't know, like commodities, it could be anything. Like for example, in India, if I'm not mistaken, like you might not have internet everywhere, and you might go and pay in cash, but paying cash to driver might be not variable, you may want to use a third party.
Yeah, I got you. So okay. So from requirements, is it possible to act? The thing which I would recommend to add is to act like airlines companies in the case which you described. So we will use like card offline, so we will get information from them. And when we have connection, we will try to charge them. And if charge is not success, we will like block the account, or ask to the bank to charge even with zero limits, if it's possible. Another option is to provide Uber card to fill it, and with Uber card we can understand the amount which we can spend for the ride, and at this place we are safe as a company to not provide free ride. So these two things which I would add.
We're not necessarily designing the payment system itself. We design a client which can support any payment system with as little changes to the code as possible.
Okay,
because
gotcha.
Imagine if you add something new or payment system changes, you would need to deploy changes to all the clients, and we try to avoid this.
Okay, I understand. So the main problem here which we try to solve is to dynamic UI which is driven by server, and to provide this UI like client for the client, right? So to control.
Yeah, but it's not just dynamic UI. It's also, you're not just building one screen as server-driven UI. There might be like multiple steps. There might be branch logic, etc. So
yeah,
it's a dynamic UI, but it's a bigger scope than just rendering screens, because there might be some logic involved as well.
Flow. So okay, understand. So it's a full flow which could be which should be controlled on the backend. This flow should be suspended for some reason from the client, and probably it should have ability to resume this flow, because we don't want to provide any information again and again. Our UX should be the best. Okay, and also should we ask for the client to prepare payment system offline, and then when we got connection to configure it with back? Or so the question is, should we store the flow of payment, adding payment system on the client?
What's your recommendation?
My recommendation is to not do that, because we want a single point of truth here, and to have everything on the back end, because it's one of the first requirements. But in some countries it could be reasonable to make, but it's depend on requirements from these countries. So if you have any as a stakeholder, please share with me, and we will consider what to do with this.
Okay, so basically we decided not to store anything in the client because it's not safe. If you run, like if you effectively create any resource in the client, it's subject for tampering.
Okay.
So, okay, everything backend.
Okay, everything backend. We will not store any secure information on client at this site. Any information about payments, accounts details, because it's not safe. Are you okay with this decision? Or
can you tell me pros and cons on storing this information on our client?
The main concept, just payment information shouldn't be stored in client, because we can trap in a low field of such country, because each country have their own rules to managing payment information. And my recommendation is to avoid as many like touches with local laws as possible, because they change really fast, and we have to control every country, every law, and it will cost a lot for us. And we can be low suited in any time. So yeah, to provide like to remove this part. My recommendation is to remove this part from mobile application, and maybe thinking about it about some business pros in the future. But for now, I think it's more cons than pros, and it's dangerous.
That makes sense. That's a good point. Okay, so if it helps, let's try to maybe reduce the scope a bit. Let's make sure that we can support credit card payments, any kind of online payments like PayPal, cash, and charging through your carrier provider.
Carrier provider, you mean like mobile operator?
Yeah. So you know, I believe it's Brazil, where like carrier payments are very, very popular.
Gotcha. Mobile operator. Okay. So at this point, I would think about two possible solution which we will implement. First one is what about iOS version? And we talk about only iOS and Android. And
let's limit the scope to just iOS.
Okay. What the iOS target at this point?
What's your recommendation? How far back should we go?
My recommendation is iOS 11 because iPhone 5 it's 32-bit system, and it's do not comparable with current application in App Store. So this only one which we lose at this point. So iPhone 6, 5S, and the higher version will have ability to work with us, and it's worldwide market. And as you said, Brazil and other countries use all elder devices, and we want to provide for our clients as our service to more clients as possible, to help them with the right. Okay, so target iOS 11, and actually we have everything what we need on this and at this point. Okay, so I would recommend to do two things. We will work on our like dynamic payment system, which could be added in any time, and the second like our second option, our backup, I will provide kind of like web view to like cover our back, because we can miss something at any time, and to not push to update people our application. We will always have this backup, and we can like make static link, and or not static, maybe we can like put it on remote config somewhere, and cover any updates which we not ready to provide just now. Okay, so web. So privacy policy, privacy must, but not store anything. So okay, our functional requirements will be add payment system, change payment system, and remove probably, or it's not necessary for now, because if it's our MVP, we can start without that. But yeah, what do you think about this payment system?
Yeah, let's make sure that we support those 4 payment systems which we listed, and you may want to make changes to this, right? So imagine imagine you charge people through mobile operator, and now some regulation came in, and now between your payment like processing and the start of the flow, you would need to show some confirmation explaining like the breakdown of payment, like how much going to be on taxes, etc.
Gotcha.
So flow might not dramatically change. It's like, oh, now it's something else, but it can change steps and like everything in between, like between starting and finishing payment.
Okay, so the cheapest part for us as a Uber company, it will like reduce dynamic part of our UI and provide just web page, and then we can control. Oh, I provided two options. So if we want to do it really fast, we can leave only web page. Why? Because we probably will have the same functionality for iOS, Android, and web, and we can write it one time and then reuse it. It will reduce our cost dramatically. Also, it's much easier to make ABN testing for our clients on web page, and we can find the best UI for each country and find the best conversion rate for each country. And at this point, it will be pretty easy to make system design for mobile application, because all what you need is just get a link for web page and then open web page in the application, and then everything will be like on the back end and web developers part. So here's not too much what to do, but it's
okay. Let's maybe expand just a bit. So imagine mobile operator payments coming through the SDK. So they do not provide any web pages. And like for mobile, for some strange regulations, everything should go through the SDK, which you have to integrate.
Okay, so at this point, am I understand correctly that we have to provide new version with this SDK, and there is no any point to cover for previous user this type of payment?
Yeah, so like imagine you went through web use, right?
Yes.
And now they said web use not going to work anymore. Now we would need to integrate the SDK. How would your app behave in this case?
Okay, I got you. Okay, so I understand. So the problem with third-party libraries is they we do not control them, and they can make harm from our application. So at this point, I want to add feature flags to cover SDK to just turn it off any time we need it, because if we find out that something goes really bad, we have to turn it off, shut down it. Okay. Should we do we need any type of like connection, communication from server to client? I mean, push notifications or something like that about successful payment or about added payment, because some when we add the payment system, it could be with delay. And do we need to provide this information to the client, or we can use his email to not increase the scope of our application at this stage?
What is the recommendation?
It depends. If our goal is to deploy as fast as possible, I would use email, because it works really good, and also we have his phone number. So it depends what is better for some region. Maybe some region do not use email a lot, and they use only mobile phones, but messages will cost some money for us. So at this point, I need some information about how, in which country users use email or not, and then I can make decision if it's a problem for some countries, or if our payment service require emails. So I will definitely use emails because it's already worked and it's easy to use.
How can we make it configurable? So imagine in some country X, like you absolutely must show notifications.
Okay, I got you. So notification, it should be, it's few options. We have to have communication service with this channel.
Yeah, so my point, everything should be super configurable. That means you can add and remove stuff on the fly, like as much as possible. Okay, so for example, there are certain limitations. You can't really add or remove SDK. Well, you can remove SDK, but you cannot add SDK. Because as far as I remember, you can't really deploy binary code in iOS.
Yeah, right? It's static libraries. We can use static libraries at this point. Yeah, okay. So okay, so our goal is to and when you said about choose channel for communication, is client will choose communication, or we will choose, or both?
What is the recommendation?
Add as much flexibility as we can, because it's our goal. So communication.
So which option would you choose? Would client decide, or would the backend decide?
Firstly, we will decide by our own the cheapest and the most like reasonable type of communication. But of course, we have to provide client ability to choose, because our decision is not always right.
Okay, so what if somebody tampers with a client?
Somebody tampers, sorry.
Like tampering client, that means like changing the way client behaves in some way.
Okay, and can you please clarify what?
It's hard to do on iOS, but imagine tomorrow there is a new jailbreak which effectively can let you to modify apps. So it's very hard to do on iOS, but imagine they found a way of modifying install apps and then go and just rewriting parts of apps and deploying. So basically, this way the client would tell you like, hey, I just paid, like transaction successful. What do we do in this case?
No, the client never. Okay, I got you. The problem, but our application will never decide status of payment system. It's always will be our merchants with which we will connect on backend, and we will ask them about its success or not success. So even if it's third-party library, it will not. It probably, okay, so when we connect third-party library, is it possible that this third-party library will provide payment status for us? Because this is
so imagine scenario like, so what I'm just looking at a very straightforward answer here. Okay. How much stuff gonna go on client and how much stuff gonna go on the backend? And considering this, you have no idea how exactly the payment system would work, because a mobile operator can just provide you an SDK with some callbacks, and you have like zero visibility what's going on.
Okay, where we check status of payment? On the third-party backend, or its third-party library?
So a library may just provide you like a receipt or transaction ID, and this is all you have. And most of system would let you go and check them on your own end. So a consumer makes a purchase, for example, you get a receipt ID, and then your backend can verify it. But my point, so maybe I just misread you. You said that the client would report the status, and
No, no,
like
no.
I'm
I
just
say that it's no. Okay, yes. Maybe yeah. Maybe I said this, but no. The client should be as thinner as possible when we deal with any payments data, any payment system. So the clients is just and in our side it's kind of like fancy JSON because it's extremely dangerous to store any payment data on the mobile phone. So we will reduce as much information as we can, and also we will use some traps for analyze behavior. No, let's remove it from scope to remove payment data from device. But okay, yeah.
so let's jump to actually discussing the flow. Like those requirements look good.
Okay. So I pretty understand that, like where we at now. Should I write down the helicopter view of diagram, or
Sure.
you want to discuss something? So at this point, the biggest thing which we need is to pick payment and add payment. So it's the most valuable thing for us. And any other applications will use this flow or not?
We don't know yet. So.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, I will think about making framework or SDK. For example, if we want to provide this payment system for our client, and in other hand, we want to provide this service for our drivers, okay, or like delivery guys. So
right.
At this point, we will have some like app consumer which will integrate our SDK, and this application will decide when we start to work or not. Okay, other question. Do we? Okay, so I think if we will be integratable, we have to be configurable to the UI of application integrator. What I mean, so imagine like the design system. So it's components, atoms, molecules, and they from these components we will build our application to make it looks like like the main application.
Yep.
So at this we have to that's what we have to have. So design core SDK. So we have to have configuration from app consumer. App consumer have to say that to us which like theme right now, for example, black, white, or any other to be relevant to be relevant with the main application. Okay, so how we will communicate with app consumer? I'm keen on coordinator pattern because it was provided in the Apple documentation, and at this point, I think it's better to use what Apple system provide for us. But before we start, how many people in the team for developing this service?
Let's say you are the lead and you have 4 other people, 2 middles and 2 juniors.
Okay, so actually it will be pretty tough to divide such small service or so tightly coupled service. I mean, because all system components will be communicate with each other, but we will find out the way to do that. So at this point, we will create payment SDK coordinator. So okay, give me a second. I will. Oh my God. Payment SDK coordinator. So what is this? It's this is entity which create dependencies for other for other part of our system. The entity manage navigation, so it's become like a event handler.
Okay.
And yeah, so also I will add here some kind of configurator. It could be, what I mean about configurator, it could be UI configurator, it could be network configurator, to provide as much flexibility as we can from app consumer. And let's call infrastructure configurator. So it could be any other like constants or something which we have to have from main application to configure well our SDK to. Okay, and also this infrastructure configurator could add some configuration, like what the best payment system for us, or what the best way to pay for us for this app consumer. But maybe it's not really good because we will control it through the back. Okay, we have payment SDK coordinator. At this point, I will. We have a few options. We can add the DI graph. Or I don't think that this application will be SDK will really huge. So I don't think that we need really like complex dependency injection thing.
We try to make everything to be server driven, right?
To be what? Sorry.
We try to do everything server driven. That means you might want to keep the number of components on the client as low as possible. And
of course, but yeah, I understand. Yeah, but we want to provide dependency for our system, right? For any entity. So we want to provide like network service at this point. We want to provide theme to update it dynamically. So we have to inject some to the our system. So okay, let me think about your words. Maybe I missed something.
Yeah, so what's missing in terms of components, like based on everything we discussed?
So what missed on the components?
Like what components are we still missing? So we have consumer, we have configuration, we get design system, we have some kind of coordinator, but it's not enough to build the system,
so,
right?
Yeah, definitely it's not enough. So we have to ask about what to build, and we have to use our API somehow. So and our API have to provide information about what to build and how to make position to that, and we have to choose format, and we have to choose a way with which we communicate with the server. So we have few options here. As everything becomes server driven, we have to have communication from server to the client directly, and also we have to send information from client to server. So at this point we have option. We can provide like HTTP connection, like regular REST API, and for example, a server sent event, and it will kind of work. But at this case, when everything on the server, I would better use WebSocket, because it's the concept of WebSocket that we have to control everything, connection on the client. We have to connect when the app become in the tray. We have to stop WebSocket when the app become available. We have to start a socket, and it's some other problem when socket open it, but it's do not work, and we have to manage everything in the client. So this is the main concept. It's complex decision, but it's fit best for us right now than to support.
I'm trying to understand why,
tooling.
for example, we prefer WebSocket over like REST, for example, or any other request-based system.
Okay, because everything driven on the client, right? And imagine if it's a rare case, but imagine if we have to like somebody like send letter to for us. For example, in Brazil you use payment system, or like in Russia you use payment system which under the sanction right now. So from this exact moment we have to just stop to use them, because we will have sanction like second sanction if we provide this service. And at this moment we have to just stop use to provide this payment system just immediately, even if the person feeling the like add this payment system or try to pay with this payment system on the current ride. So it should be just right now.
Okay, so before we go to protocols, can we discuss what exact data we're going to be sending? Like, what's the format?
Okay, I got you. Maybe let's finish the helicopter view scheme diagram, and then because like our goal is to deploy, and if we go deeper, we won't have any result right now. So we have API. We have I think it's better to build this like engine UI engine in a like a tree base. What I mean. So we have main like service which know how to draw components, how to fill them with data, and we have like leaves like these components leaves, for example, like card like button, or like title, or radio button, or collection view, or other thing. So they have to be independent. And at this point we have to have stateless components and stateful components, because some components could be configurable by users, and some components could be read-only. Okay, so the SDK coordinator have to know how to open abstract view controller. So it just open with the we have maybe you were right about that. We don't really need dependency injection graph or service locator, because we will control everything. So we will services which we need. So, and then just pass them to the view. We have here we have pretty independent components. So I would suggest to use MVVM because we can cover some logic with view model, and it make view more like independent, and we can store some logic there and abstract logic, and then use it to configure our view. So we have to have view model, and we have to have view. At this point, I don't think that they really need some, but yeah, we can use some binding mechanism between view model and view. But according to my experience, it's not really necessary, because view component itself know how to act, and it could be just
if let me interrupt you just a bit, let's move away from MVVM and just talk about the rest of the components, because now the diagram is still incomplete.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yes, thank you for your hint. Okay, so we have service which will decide. We have to have general network, and the service which confirm protocol general network to make it possible to cover with unit tests, much easier to make mock for them. And it will create it's going to be created in a payment SDK coordinator, and then next it's abstract class. I actually would use so then we have to have so we have to communicate with our server. So here's two things which we have to discuss. When we have framework SDK, our tokenization will depend on app consumer or not?
I'm not sure if I understood the question. What do you mean tokenization?
Okay. So when we imagine we have application, and the application start SDK, right? So we will communicate all of the time with one server, or it will depend on which application start our SDK.
Let's just scope everything to a single app. We have a single app. We have Uber app for, let's say, Uber rider app. I mean, maybe not Uber, like our rider app. So let's not worry about using this for many other applications.
Okay, gotcha. So dynamic or payments provider. Payments provider network. Okay, and then we have to have really smart parser. So at this point, we really need to have some kind of data which we got from backend. So then it could be some IDs or a description, but we can talk about it. But I think it's to make it precise, we have to talk about view data and about view data and view model. So what is view data and view model? View model, it's view model describe what kind of component we have to use, and what how to have to be built, like constraints and other things like colors. And view data is some additional like data for the components. For example, regulars. Like for example, you have field for writing email or phone number, and we have to provide proper data format. So view data will like cover this part. So view model is a body, and view data is the soul of and this parser, this guy have to and so it's like as I said, it's a tree-like system. So it's a lot of components which become like a bigger component. So yeah, and this parser have to understand which components we got back, build them. So we have from parser to view.
Kirill, we just breaking up again.
And then to the view.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
So video breaks down a bit, but we also over 45 minutes. So I got all the signal I need, and we can jump to feedback if you want. I'm gonna share the document.
Yeah, it was pretty
fast. Because like the video is breaking up and it's very hard to follow.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Let me share the document. Copy link. I'm gonna paste it to the chat. Okay, so the task was design flexible payment system for Uber Rider app. Okay, so I would say that you started really strong. Like talking about business aspects of this, it was actually pretty good. It was like very strong signal about like privacy consideration, like not storing anything in the clients, and that you two can like also fintech ever changing laws, like financial laws, which should keep changing all the time, which is really good. Yeah, we started like with very vague, like, hey, let's just do this for everything. And then I saw that you've been struggling a bit, so I just tried to help you out and reduce the scope. Then you started talking about OS version, like 32, 64-bit, like what apps are going to be available on App Store, etc. It's a good justification. Adding backup options like web view fallback is a very good point. That's a really good idea. So if your app, like you have a legacy client which cannot do stuff, just like default to web, or maybe like show upgrade some great logic, like your app is still old, etc. Right? You also try to downgrade the task. So basically, what if we just do everything in the web? So you try to negotiate. It's a very good signal, right? So I would say, from the point of like project management, business point of view, I have no complaints. Like it's really things that you mature in this regard and really know what you're doing. Also, like bringing A/B tests to get performance, etc. I had to put some hints, like how about feature flags? You got this, and deployment speed. Like, oh, we might want to start easy and just go there. So like this high-level discussion was really good, right? But in terms of functional, non-functional requirements for the actual system, it actually went pretty poor. I'm still not sure what requirements we got after the discussion. And you said, okay, let's jump to the diagram. And we were already like 15 minutes in. And I said, okay, yeah, maybe we just dragged the conversation for too long. Well, let's jump to the diagram. Like once again, you start pretty strong. You said, okay, I'm going to be starting with a design system, which is very important for this case, especially when you try to make sure that the app and its certain features, they look like alike. So design system is really a must. Then you brought coordinator, and you said, oh, we're going to bring coordinator because it's an Apple documentation. MVC also in Apple documentation. I would say that's a very poor justification for picking up technology just because, oh, Apple recommends it. You may say that we might use this because of such and such features, and it's widely adopted, and we would expect all engineers to know it, or it's a very like short learning curve. But just because it's Apple documentation, probably not a good way to go. And you asked about the team size, which probably going to be a better question for task definition, like initial requirement stage. And like one bad signal, which I didn't really like, it said, oh, it would be really tight to split work. Well, we'll figure it out. That's not what an interview might want to hear. It's like, oh, we're gonna struggle. Like, don't do this. Even if like you're not gonna struggle, just brought it. Okay. Like it's for some reason it like resonated for me and would totally put that in the report. Yeah, then there was a little struggle with diagramming, going back and forth. So what I would recommend, research what tools your target company is going to be using and learn this tool. Learn shortcuts, learn everything. So this way you just like really, really smooth, because we wasted like good 5-7 minutes on this, just trying to make sure that boxes and text align. You just like taking your own time without providing anything useful for the interview. Let's see. Then you started to bring like lots of low-level components like DI graph, which sounds really good, like for generic, in generic terms. Like yes, most of stuff needs DI to reduce coupling, but in this case, I wasn't not sure how exactly you would feel DI into the design. So for example, design system, no questions. Then configurator for UI network infrastructure, etc. Like we are server driven. Like, do we need another configurator? So is it feature flag killers? That's one. But if it's configuring everything else, and if you use design system that's already kind of tied to your app consumer, would you configure them independently? So it's kind of a huge blind spot, right? And the purpose of those components were not really well justified. I would expect lots of questions about, oh, why exactly it's needed, what's purpose is going to be having. Then we put like API box, right, which is totally fine. We need something to talk to the client, but we haven't discussed the protocol which you're going to be using, like what exact data we're going to be using. And now you started to go deeper. It's like, oh, it's going to be HTTP REST. And would it be WebSockets? Yeah, it could be a WebSocket. And there's absolutely no justification, just like describing pros and cons. I would first start if we want to go just like in more like traditional client server architecture, like CRUD, right? Or would we need real-time bidirectional? Like there's very little cases when you actually need real-time bidirectional communication. It's usually like any kind of real-time application, like stocks, chats, games, etc. Otherwise, it's just a huge overhead without like it doesn't bring any value. Yeah, so I try to like bring you back. Like, okay, let's not talk. Let's talk about diagrams. Like, what's missing? Because if you look at this diagram, you're not going to be able to build a system. Okay. Then when you add a component, you would go and start talking about it. I would just put a component. If you remember, like we got a session from yesterday, Raj was like, here's diagram, like boom, 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 boom. That's it. Very quick, very concise. Don't waste time on this. And then it's a very common mistake. People jump straight to MVM. Like we haven't decided like what exactly happening. Like in terms of components, I would rather say something. Okay, we have a network communication layer API. We have SDK, native SDK layer when we're going to put all SDKs. Then we have this layout engine, which gonna take whatever data we got from our network and actually create UI from this. And then we need to have some kind of like virtual machine for actually running logic. So we're looking for creating multiple screens. We're looking for branching logic, etc. We put this, and then we would need to some way to communicate between native layer and this machine. So we probably want to have some kind of command processor. those kind of components. Like, it is like out of blue. I have no idea. Maybe there's a better way. But this is how I would probably structure it. And it's like, okay, so now I can see all the components. And this way, it's much easier to divide it between engineers. So we said, okay, so your more senior, more junior members might work on layout engine because it's like, well, like much well-defined tasks, etc. Much easier to parallelize than just trying to throw a bunch of stuff. And yeah, it's a tendency just to go on and talk about MVVM, but it's not design. MVVM is more like UI architecture, and it's a very, very low level. So yes. I had to interrupt you because you would just go way too deep in a wrong direction. And yes. Then you start adding classes and bringing up protocols. So this is class diagram, and it's not here because, as you said yourself in your own words, it's a helicopter view. It's a like 30,000 feet view. You can see classes from up there. And then you use like tokenization. You use like, oh, I was worrying about tokenization. It got me totally confused. I'm not sure like what's tokenization. So you selected a term which confused the interviewer, and then you had to explain it and waste time. And then I said, oh no, we don't need that. So we just wasted a couple of minutes with absolutely no signal for this. And it also was an attempt to expand the task. Don't expand the task unless it's absolutely necessary. There is this principle, you ain't gonna need it. So when you try to be like, oh, but what if we're gonna be using it everywhere and then expand for other platforms? The majority of cases, it never happens. It's better just to concentrate on task at hand. And if there is a need to expand it, you can do it on demand, but don't try to put more functionalities that actually required just to solve the task at hand. There's lots of discussion on this, but in my personal experience for all those years, wherever we did this, it never worked. Like you just make everything more complex without any benefit, especially when you're on a tight deadline. Yeah, and then you kind of, once again, you went to view model, view parser, and we were running out of time. And at this point, I got like all the signal I had, and yeah, we ended there. But basically, we never moved past high-level diagram. That means that the problem was not solved. So I can see a very strong signal for like business kind of stuff, which is really good. And like, it gave me feelings that you would be much better PM than engineer. Like based off how you describe it. I'm not giving you a recommendation. This is like what signal I got. But remember, like being a good engineer and being able to pass the interview is very, very different things. Like we're all talking about signals. Yeah, so that's the perception and the way the task was structured, because you be very careful what you say in initial like getting to know your questions. So you said, I'm solving business problems with engineering tools. And like, oh, cool. So I originally want to build just Uber Rider app, but it said on fintech, like business kind of stuff. And I said, wow. So Uber has actually this business need to make sure that its payment systems are so flexible. And there's can't remember the guy, his name. He used to work at Uber, and he was talking about all the stuff with payment systems, airport pickups. It's a very complex thing. So I said, okay, I'm gonna change the scope of the task to better suit the candidate, because like if you put the business stuff as a primary skill, I would go and try to probe you there, because this way I can get a better signal compared to somebody who's a GNLC. And yeah, business skills, no complaints, really well. But like when it comes to system design, I would say needs more practice.
Okay, so Alex, am I understand correctly that if it will be more like structured and more high level, not to become could have more time to describe more valuable things for system design. So I spend a lot of the point that I spend a lot of time to providing not necessary engineering components. Okay.
Look at the diagram. Can you build the system with a diagram?
Yeah. No,
I mean, you
not
can,
really. No, not really.
yeah. But imagine another diagram, which is like, okay, native SDKs, API, layout engine, this like parser, I mean, like flow virtual machine. I don't know. It's just like making things on the spot. So you can see, okay, I can see what.
So just through it.
Yeah. So what components the system consists of. So when you build in a house, you said, I'm going to have a basement, I'll have walls, windows, roofs, etc. You're not saying, okay, so I'm going to use like bricks here, and here's a carpet, right? Stay high level. Make sure that you understand how you would build a system, because the biggest key here was we tried to move as much logic from client to the backend, but there's a twist. If you try to deploy a generic virtual machine, so imagine you said, oh, I'm going to be using JavaScript, because you can run JavaScript on pretty much in a headless mode using WebKit, or I can't remember the name of the framework on this. And Apple is not very happy about it, because they don't want you to deploy any significant changes to the app without passing through the review. So we said, okay, to make sure that this is not happening, we're gonna define a set of commands we can execute. So for example, show a screen, right? Send a request, something like this. So it's not like it's so generic that you can start with Uber Rider app and then deploy a game, like in one of your server-side updates in JavaScript. So that's another topic for discussion, right? And we didn't touch this. Like, we would send JSON, we would send JavaScript, which would send something else. What's going to be the structure? How this going to be built? And it's way more important than which UI architecture you are going to select. And based on your experience, especially saying like, oh, I've been running teams, I perceive you as a more senior engineer in terms of like, you're going to have engineers who would go figure out UI layer. Like you trust your middles and your juniors to figure out if it's MVM or MVI or Viper or anything else. Like, you don't care about those. That's a very low level. You care about like high level. Okay.
Alex, when you started format and other things, I just interrupt you and is it was me or like, can you make comment on this or just we have to dive deeper because you kind of take me to the right place?
The point, like,
So,
I'm looking for signals.
I have to do in this case.
I'm looking for signals. So we started discussing business stuff, and I have a very strong signal that yes, you keep like the interest of a company like first, just making sure that we're not going to get in any trouble, like legal, etc. So once I got this, there is no reason to dig deeper. So now I want to see like what components. And interesting, like you started with design system. You started with design system as your first component. It's a signal. That means that you might be leaning more on UI side, right? It's not about what components exactly you select, but like in what order, in what resolution. That means you put API, great, but then next time you put general network service which extends the protocol. It's a huge drop in terms of level of details. And if I interrupt you, that's because I got all the signal, and it's actually good for you to not go any further, because I might just be polite and just let you talk.
Okay.
But I already got the note for it, and it's just taking time.
Okay, gotcha.
Like when it's talking to video conferences, look at interviewer's facial expression. So sometimes you talk about something and you can see that like, and you stop and said, okay, you have any question, or like, why would they frown? Like, if they keep like nodding, they agree, good. But if you can see that they like put their eyebrow together, it's like, you said something and the facial expression changed dramatically, you might want to stop and check what's up. So yeah, it's interrupting you,
it's
not
kind of
because
signals which I got from you.
Yeah, interrupting, it's not because like they rude. Like I'm like, oh, you're talking nonsense, you better stop now. No, because I got all the signal.
Got you. Reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, any from the spectators want to raise a hand and provide more input? Okay, Malab.
Well, I don't have input, but I have one question. Like you said that we haven't provided any kind of a JSON or something that how the modules are going to communicate, right? So
Yeah.
the JSON, you mean we have to define some sort of actual JSON or just method signatures, like we are calling going to call this particular method and it will return a particular flags like true, false, like for example, PayPal is available, yes or no, kind of those things, or just a proper JSON you're talking about?
So when we're talking about JSON, we effectively talking about like how we're going to transfer data. Before we decide how we transfer data, we need to figure out what data we're going to be transferring. So for example, you may say that we gonna receive list of screens in flow. Like we call it the flow, for example. We're going to receive list of screens. All those screens going to contain some UI and some actions. So for example, when you press the button, you say, give me action ID, and then you define an action. And this action going to go and invoke a next screen or show a pop-up or make a call to a native SDK or make a network call, right? So you describe this and said, okay, maybe we're going to start just putting as JSON, which might be wasteful in terms of its text-based protocol. And if we get lots of data, it's going to grow. But it's a very quick start for our prototyping. So we're not going to go to any like custom binary serialization or whatever. I would start with this. But if you said, oh, we're going to use JSON, I said, fine, JSON is okay, but what exactly we're sending? Does it make sense?
Yeah, so kind of a high level overview of what kind of a data we are going to send and what we are going to receive.
Yeah, so at the end of this, I still have no idea how exactly we're going to be building those flows. We get some generic components, which make sense. But like, if you grab this and come back to the team and said, okay, this is what we're building, it would be extremely confusing. I would probably start with just talking about this model. I'm not talking about view model, just like how it's going to happen. So let's say, okay, we want to make a generic virtual machine, which is going to be run on some actions. So basically, we would build some internal representation, as you said, is a tree structure. And we're going to have actions, and we may have like some kind of callbacks, and it needs to talk to the native layer. Okay, so for native layer, we might want to get storage because we might still want to store something. So imagine like you're going through the flow and you want to store on which position, like which screen you're currently at. So if app crashes, you come back and just restore you on exact screen. You don't need to store.
It should backend store it. It should backend store it, not VR.
Well, that's another discussion. Another discussion. So what I'm saying, like you just put this on a very, very high level and said, would we store this? Would we store our position in the purchase flow? Was it going to be backend? Pros and cons. And yeah, we didn't get to this part, unfortunately. This task is very, very vague, and I would say it's one of the most complex questions we got here, but it makes it very interesting because, like, no matter where you go, it's a low-hanging fruit in terms of what it can do, compared to like design, I don't know, Instagram, which is very, very well defined.
The main struggle for me, it was I really go deeper. You know, I try to imagine how I will write like code components, how they will communicate on entity level. But from your words, I understand that it should be just, okay, we have to parse here from action. Here we choose which SDK to initialize.
Yeah, so before you make components.
This format, so.
Yeah, before you make components, you
like,
figure out what exactly you do. That was the whole purpose. I wanted to find something which there is going to be zero chances you would know. So you're in fintech, so you have some experience, but it's so unlikely that you ever build something like this. That means that I put you in a new ambiguous situation when you have to figure out on the spot. So you're not like, oh, we built this before. So I said like, hey, can you build me a real-time chat? So you're just going to go and just tell about the project, which you may or may not build. You might learn from the job, which is not very interesting. But when you bring this, and I would say, unless you actually work in Uber or similar position and doing this, it's zero chance that you got this. And it's like one way to see how a candidate would solve novelty problems. Because like when you're at the job and you get a novelty problem, would you start like panicking? Would you start doing this, or would you just like go and get like a very structured approach? So you start with like bird's eye view, layer components, see how data flows, define your model in terms of like what exactly you're representing and how it works, because the problem is very, very complex.
It was really interesting.
Yeah, I
But
was
next
hoping
time
so.
I will show not only my business skill, also engineering skills. So
You know what? Showing business skill is actually a good idea because it kind of brings a fresh perspective. So imagine like everyone is just engineer and just works on pixels, right? Look, oh, like every time you need to do something, you start to thinking in terms of MVVM and like low-level APIs, protocols, Swift, etc. But you come and said, okay, but what if we have some bizarre regulation? What if something changes? It's a very fresh perspective, and it kind of makes you a stronger candidate compared to pure engineers. So I would say if we have two engineers which both same level of skill, and one of them brings business skills on the table, I would say most likely the guy with extra skills wins. It's very biased, right? It's almost impossible to say like two people are identical, because imagine you have like 10 plus years of experience, you can't be identical to anyone else. You have some very unique skills and characteristics which nobody else might have. But it's very biased. You just get something like very, very complex as your whole experience and put it in binary category, higher, no higher. So the process is not great, but more signal you provide, the better chances that like you're gonna make it. Okay, anyone else from the audience? Questions, feedback? Okay, if not, like same question, Kirill. So what went well? What could be better? And what will you do differently next time?
Everything was just great. I think you really know what to do, and I don't know what you're preparing for. Maybe you're preparing to become like staff engineer and finding people in the team, but you're in the right way, in the right track.
No, I'm asking about you.
So
spoiler alert, I'm already a staff engineer.
Yeah,
I'm asking about you, like about your performance.
Gotcha. Yeah, my performance. So I think my mistake was actually it was really close to my past experience, because I made kind of dynamic payment system service or something like that, and it brings for my like eyes too much details. So I made how I will write this service, because part of that I've written before. So and the main problem is that I couldn't show everything what I have in my head, because of course I don't have all answers, but I understood problem really clear, and I was sure that like I just run out of time. But so yeah, I have to be short and just provide my vision, because now I didn't have a chance because I was run out of time, and it's my biggest mistake that I struggle with the Excalibur, that I struggle with some details about MVVM. Not struggle, just want to show something that do not need to show. Do not provide right signal. So yeah, that's my best worst. The best thing which I made is, yeah, I spent too much time on the thing which not related to the signals which you're looking for. So yeah, and I really appreciate that you provide me hint about project manager, but I believe in my engineering skill.
No,
also,
I'm not pushing you. I'm not pushing you. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just met you, and
Understand.
Yeah, it's signal.
Yeah, got you. So yeah, I will accept it as a challenge, and I think we will meet again, and I will provide better diagram and explanation, and in a more short way, and provide more signals. And next mock interview. That's my.
This is kind of proves the point. You had this experience. You knew how you can potentially build this, because you didn't have enough practice of like laying off your thoughts using this like this. This is not like SkyDraw is not the best diagramming tool on the market, right? And like because of lack of practice, you could not really deliver, even considering that you had higher chances to build it if you actually going to be in a normal environment. So you said, okay, we're going to be building this, so then you start like design this. So that's the whole point. That's why you need to practice. Like it would not necessarily tell that you're a bad engineer per se. And not necessarily means that you should abandon this and just go to work as PM. No, I get a stronger business side signal than engineering, which is totally biased. It's based on like, I met you first time, like we never talked before. I have no idea about your experience besides of what you talk in the very beginning. So I like somebody tell it's like speed dating, right? You just go and you have like very little time to make a good impression, and you can totally screw it up.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not like, once again, I'm not suggesting you to go and do
totally understand you. I just a bit disappointed that I haven't showed my engineering part, because it's like, yeah, that's because I was
important part
to provide like it's important part.
The important part is that you potentially learn something, and there is no job in the end. Like I can't offer you a job right now. It just pretty much is doing for fun. It's mostly having like entertainment value. Just coming and looking at like somebody else struggling, and you're happy it's not you, and you would never make all those mistakes. But as happened before, like the reason you're here, because you make a very good feedback, really good input on one of the previous sessions, right? So as you can see, being in a candidate seat is much harder than being in audience, when you're like so relaxed, so chill, no judgment, you're anonymous, and said, oh, I would totally do this differently. Yeah, so it's not like saying that, gotcha. No, this is exactly how it goes. Like being in the spotlight, like if you not prepare this, it's lots of stress. But imagine you're constantly in spotlight. You just get accustomed to the stress. And when you get to actual interview, it's like, oh, it's just like a single person. It's not like 20 people watching. It's not going to get recorded. It's like you just relax. So
yeah, for me it was
another part.
Like, yeah, it was like a gym, like you might, weights or something, and I just try to lift it or something like that. And yeah, it wasn't a lot of stress, but as you said, just need practice to do that. So actually, I do not find myself struggling with like 20 something people looking what we are doing, but I was really struggling, like, okay, how to put all my thoughts in this short amount of time on this whiteboard and tell what I want to tell, and do everything under the protocol, like system design protocol. So thank you a lot, Alex. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, so when you will looking for somebody who want to try mock interview, I will be there. So I will prepare
make sure that you prepare more, because if
yep, definitely.
Okay, Anna. Anna,
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to say some positive feedback also compared to, I guess, like some of the other mocks that we've seen, and something I'm hoping to learn myself is like I found you very decisive. So even though maybe it wasn't like always 100% right, I think it was something I don't know, I just wanted to share that I think it's good, and it's something that we mentioned in the previous ones of people maybe not being as decisive. So hopefully, yeah, we can all improve collectively. So I don't know, just wanted to say this bit of feedback.
Yeah, I agree.
So the point that I make too much decisions, or
no,
like,
that you
explanation?
went like very concrete at what you want to do, even without explanations.
No, it's
Okay.
I think it's like, it's of course sometimes you can go off the wrong path, but at the same time it's good to see, because I know personally, like, I'm always second guessing myself, and sometimes I'm thinking out loud, and it doesn't really have to, like, it's things that don't have to be thought out loud. So it's good to see someone who does the exact opposite, and hopefully I can learn from that. So it was a compliment, it was a positive feedback. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you very much. I just trying.
You're welcome.
Thank you much, and thank you.
Yeah, to
Okay.
piggyback on this, you have to drive the conversation. Like, if you ask lots of questions or looking for validation of your ideas, it's generally not a good signal. Like, but don't be like, oh, I'm going to be this, and this, because it's an Apple documentation. Like, you should be decisive, but you also should justify every decision.
Gotcha. Sounds reasonable. Thank you, guys.
This is just like my perception and perception from the audience. So take it with a huge grain of salt. Like, always exercise your best judgment, and there is no one size fits it all approach in this case. Like, you should really see what's your interviewer looking for.
Okay.
But system design
Sounds
is
great.
not just pretty diagrams. In many settings, you're going to be doing very little drawing, lots of discussion. It's up to an interviewer to decide on the style.
So in the end of the system design, we have to have diagram, because your main arguments, you all of the time say that with this diagram, if I bring this diagram to the team, we can't build anything with this. And it's where the balance between talk a lot like about decision and solution, and provide just finish decision, like make this work somehow. So this is really complicated between like, okay, keep talking, describe your decision, and just went with result. So where the balance between
so what you're describing is called interview transcript. So you want to provide some evidence, like some written notes for hiring committee to look at. In terms of, do you want a diagram or not? Your best bet is just to ask. You would say, do you want to draw me a high-level diagram with all the system components? And the interviewer said, no, it's fine. Let's just discuss. And then you might want to make notes yourself. So you're typing. So for example, you put requirements, you put a bullet list, and then anything else, you write it down. So it's not going to be just a blank page, because this way it's a single point of failure is basically the perception which your interviewer had during the interview, right? But if you have transcript, it's going to be interviewer notes and a transcript. And if they want to see a diagram, like, it's much easier to do a diagram than just try to explaining. And that, like, one of the signals which I got, you did lots of like hand waving and just talking about stuff without providing like lots of concrete like steps how to solve it. So if this transcript is only this diagram and some requirements, it could be better, but it's treated as evidence of like the knowledge you had, of the discussion you had with the interviewer, because otherwise it's just like single evidence is a report that the interviewer might submit, and they might not be really good with taking notes, or they might be confused, whatever. Like, as I said, system design is not about drawing diagrams. It's not about even solving the problem in the most like the best way possible. It's about sending signals, and your idea is just to check all marks. Like, you're thinking about unhappy paths, you're thinking about compatibility, crashes, legal, privacy, everything. So more signal you provide, the better chances that they would look at you and say, oh yeah, that's actually a person we're looking for.
Sounds great, as always.
Yeah, don't take this as like as your guide. Like, oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna reproduce this exactly. Nah, it's so obvious when the candidate learns something from the internet and just tries to reproduce it. And then you slightly twist the requirement and they go down.
Yep. Yeah, that's how it works. So,
Right?
thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Like Anna's comment kind of made me realize that I probably want to provide positive feedback as well. I usually go and just see what's wrong, which kind of makes this.
You made it.
Like,
I think, yeah.
One thing, I maybe avoided it. Like, telling you how good you are doesn't make you any good, right? Because you already know how good you are. But pointing out to some mistakes that I might see could lead you to path of improvement, and we also very short in time. So maybe next time, yeah, I should have totally mentioned that you've been decisive. But I don't know. I'm learning as well.
No, it's a you know. I think everything was great because I'm looking for critics, not for like.
You don't need validation
because only critic. Yeah, because critics will provide me resources for growth, but validation. So when you say it, you point on my mistakes, that's actually what I'm looking for. But it really depends on the people, because somebody will think that, okay, like Alex just said that I'm bad and this and that, but not good and anything. So yeah, but I feel just amazing because yeah, I'm the hugest critic for myself, but with experience point of view as yours is just much better because I understand, okay, that's my thoughts about this, right? So this critic is valid. This critic, okay, I will think about it. I need to few hours or few days to figure out like how to show it maybe from other directions. So yeah, I think it's totally fine, totally okay. Thank you very much for your feedback, comment, and yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. No stress. Just yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, people stress a lot. All right. Anyone else from the audience? No? Well, then I'll assume the rest was perfect, and I'll probably see you next time.
See you next time, guys. Have a good day. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care.